Takaichi, the Margaret Thatcher-inspired Prime Minister of Japan, is pushing for the creation of a Japanese CIA. In coordination with Kash Patel in the United States, Sane Takaichi in Japan plans on creating a centralized intelligence agency for the first time since the 1940s in the age of Imperial Japan. Sane Takaichi is obsessed with reviving Imperial Japan as she refuses to apologize for any of their war crimes. Now she is pushing for a remilitarization of Japan and preparing for a future war and conflict against China. They're not even hiding the fact that they want to establish this new Japanese CIA in order to engage in foreign espionage against China. This is why Sane Takaichi is facing massive anti-war protests back at home. It's clear she doesn't give a damn about the average Japanese person. She was installed in order to serve the neocon interests of the United States. This story also shows how pathetic Japan is. Because what do you mean you are coordinating with the FBI while creating your own centralized intelligence agency? Japan has no sovereignty. This intelligence agency will essentially be an extension of American intelligence that is already being used to spy on the Japanese people and promote never-ending conflict in the region. The New York Times finally writes an article exposing how Israel systemically uses and sexual violence as a tool of war, and now Zionists are melting down now that their code has been completely exposed. We covered this months ago, but the Western corporate media is just now catching up because the evidence regarding mass committed by Israeli soldiers and prison guards has become completely overwhelming. There has been countless testimonies, including Israeli soldiers openly admitting that they use dogs in order to Palestinian prisoners.
Where do you serve?
I was in the Navy guarding patrol boats.
And you're the guy with the iPhone who had the vibrator shoved right up his ass. And everyone knows, were you involved in this incident? You filmed it. You're the one who filmed it. He's the Ashkenazi who filmed it. What you're doing to a friend is not nice. Did you really hear about Nukhbat? And is it true they're kept on the floor, but blindfolded like all day in the yard?
No, not these ones.
Are
yes,
there Nukhbat like more ripe, less ripe? How is that? Only the ripe ones are taken to what? How do you separate the Nukhbat? How do you know who to put on your lap?
He participates in worse things.
Suddenly, Diochi, you're exposing things here that would practically put you, the driver, on a watch list even before Bibi and Gala. They'll say, arrest him first. Forget about Bibi, just go and arrest this fellow. So are you saying you're hitting them based on what they've done, and then you're punishing them in a different way? What is this? Someone who said, don't give out information. And what do you say? Come on, since you're in the dark and all, what's the worst thing you did to them? Come on, spoil us a bit. What?
Keep the right to remain silent.
Nice, I'm really liking it. Oh, wonderful. The entire audience of Crimes Against Humanity is applauding. How lovely.
See, you came with a weapon. You came with a dog. Who is this dog?
This dog is Django, with me in every activity, with me in reserves.
Django?
He was in Gaza.
Yes, they use dogs to people. Israel is the most barbaric, evil society in modern human history. And this is being reported by the New York Times, a paper completely ran and controlled by Zionists. That's how you know the evidence is absolutely overwhelming. And Zionists are absolutely furious that the New York Times is exposing their barbaric code. And now they're using the same pathetic, lazy trope, smearing them for blood libel against the Jewish people. Notice how there's no cause for investigation from the Zionist scumbags. They always defend their genocidal tribe. Now we have Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel that claims they're going to sue the New York Times for exposing their barbaric society. Sir, you was caught on video engaging in of a Palestinian prisoner, and Israeli soldiers and guards openly brag about how they use sexual violence as a tool of war. This is just a typical Zionist media intimidation tactic in order to prevent journalists from exposing the crimes of Israel. But it's too late. The people in the West woken up to who Israel actually is, and there's no putting that genie back in the bottle.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, we are back once again. Welcome to Nick at Prime Time on Friday. You guys know I'm always in lab cooking. And we're cooking so much at Hotspot. You have to follow us. Dropping about 4 or 5 of these bangers every week. That's why I had to show you guys at least 2 of them. I was running behind on my live stream showings of my Hotspot. This is my short form content. And we reach a whole different audience. They do pretty well on Instagram and X. But you guys notice how I've been covering this Israel rape story for over a year and a half now. Like, it probably longer than that, man. I've been talking about how Israelis believe that IDF soldiers have the right to rape Palestinians, and how the chief IDF rabbi sent out a memo. Was like, yeah, rape in wartime is permissible. I can find you guys. I'm not engaged in some advanced anti-Semitism here. Let me show you guys. IDF chief rabbi wartime rape. I gotta be careful when I Google that. Boy, based on the shit I be Googling, looking for stories, I already know the CIA is looking at me, bro. Like, what the fuck you doing, bro? Israel Army names new chief rabbi criticized over rape comments. This is not necessarily the article I'm looking for. Dude, they be scrubbing these damn stories, bro. Here's another one. Look, this is 2025. Israeli army appoint chief rabbi who condoned rape. But we're anti-Semitic because we don't believe that Israel has the right to exist. I don't believe, like, it's hard to convince me that any theocracy or any state generally have the right to exist, especially a culture like this. The famous right to rape rallies, they are finally hitting the United States now in the result of this story because, bro, Zionists, they have not been taking this story well at all. But there have been a full-blown meltdown across the entire genocidal diaspora. 100% coordinated, we know. And imagine being the kind of person who has to pretend that they know that this is, you have to pretend that this is fake. I explained how they had the right to rape rallies in Israel, and the New York Times never covered it. In the New York Times, a paper that is ran by Zionists, it's a Jewish supremacy outlet. They will never allow anyone to support the correct position, the resistance of the Palestinian people, to be a writer there. The person who owned the New York Times is a diehard Zionist. In the article that they wrote exposing mass rape against the Palestinian people used as a tool of war, it is high-key a garbage article. It is actually high-key a garbage article. The article just confirms what we already know about Israeli rape. But the reason why the article is garbage is because in the beginning of the article, they tried to appease Zionists by explaining how, yeah, there was also mass rape during October 7th. I'll put that down for a second. They will say there was mass rape during October 7th, but I'm sorry to say, guys, our guys also got caught raping. Now, the giant problem of this, and if you read the article, if you read any of these mainstream Western claims about mass rape by Hamas on October 7th, they never provide any evidence. No video footage. You know, like how we saw a video of the Palestinian man being raped by the IDF prison guards, never any evidence. So you guys realize that this article written by the New York Times is already engaging in Zionist propaganda by trying to conflate what the IDF is doing, using sexual violence as a tool of war, with Hamas' rightful right to armed defense. I debunked, and anyone who has an IQ above room temperature can understand why the mass rape hoax is ridiculous. Because I did a lot of research, especially at the time, about like the realities of October 7th, like what actually happened on the ground. One thing that Western media never covered, and I remember when I was first researching this in late 2023, I was shocked to learn, and it's not surprising, we learned that a few hundred Hamas members died during October 7th. Do you guys know that? You guys know when people talk about October 7th, they never talk about the Hamas soldiers who died? Because it was a highly tense, high-pressure operation. We had Apache helicopters raining hellfire down of Hamas members who will have to hit checkpoints at certain times. They're fighting against emergency response. There was reports of Israeli settlers, and these are like the casualty examples. These are the examples of Hamas committing murder on quote unquote civilians. If you accept the talking point, I don't accept the talking point that these people are civilians, the adults at least. But the idea is that a lot of the civilians who died during October 7th was like the armed settlers. There were a lot of armed settlers that was fighting back and they were shooting at Hamas. So imagine you're a Hamas soldier and you are engaged in this crazy, like once in a generational military operation. You parachuting out of the sky. I don't know about you guys, I'll vomit. Like, I'm not a good guy at handling heights. Like the amount of nerves I will have. You guys are parachuting out of the sky into an active war zone, and you got these critical objectives of kidnapping as many IDF soldiers as possible because they was attacking the concert that was next to a military installation. They wanted to kidnap IDF soldiers. So in order to engage in such a military operation, speed is essential to make sure that that's actually a successful military operation, which it was. That's why they took a lot of Israeli hostages. That means they was moving fast, dodging hellfire, fighting the IDF, hitting their checkpoints, getting in and getting out. And the ones who didn't do that was among the 200 Hamas members who died during October 7th. So imagine this wartime scenario where you're watching your friends, your comrades in arms, who you've been training with, who you've been fighting with, who you bonded with as war brothers. Your brothers in the resistance. Imagine how many Hamas soldiers took part in the operation who witnessed long-term friends die. Like, you were watching your friends being gunned down. You're afraid you're going to get gunned down. The IDF is shooting Apache helicopter ammunition at everybody, even Israelis. They engage in a Hannibal directive. Essentially, any human walking in on the site is liable to get shot. You witness your comrade go down. You witnessing your friends die. This is the moment that you've been training for your entire life. What Jewish supremacists will have you believe is during this high-pressure military operation, while watching your comrades die, while on a timer, after parachuting from the sky, that these Hamas fighters got erections, and they just couldn't control their sexual lust for the Jewish people that they're kidnapping. Do you understand how absolutely racist you have to be to even believe this on face value? But the article pretends that this is the reality. Everyone in the West pretends that this is the reality. I explained on our show how rape is a tool of the colonizer, not the people fighting against the colonizer and fighting for resistance. Now, this is the simple, hard reality, not morality aside. This is the hard reality of the situation. In order to engage in rape as an occupying force or as a military or governmental force, that requires control. You understand what I mean? You need to control the situation. You need to be able to create a two-tier society where your military officials are above the law. You're in power, so public perception doesn't really matter. So who cares if you get caught raping a few resistance fighters. All you gotta do is tell your people they're terrorists. So you don't have to worry about PR. You have control. You have control of law and order. These in the soldiers and the people in society have been brainwashed that they are the greater. These are the recipes needed to engage in mass rape. This is why the Japanese engaged in mass rape against the Chinese. That's why French and British colonizers engaged in mass rape of the Africans as they colonized Africa. Rape as a tool of war is the tool of the colonizer. I need people in the West to understand that. If you're a resistance fighter, you're not engaging in rape for quite a few reasons, let alone morality. You have no control. PR is essential when waging a revolutionary war against giant superpowers. You need to be able to shift the perception of the populace on your side. So rape as a mechanism for liberating your people is a horrific strategy. Like in terms of public perception, let alone the lack of control. And usually if you're a resistance fighter and fighting against giant military forces, it requires quick, precise guerrilla warfare and military operations. If you're the powerful colonizer, you can fuck around. And you're going to establish dominance on the population by using sexual violence. To wrap up my point, which hopefully I explained that well. But whenever people try to smear the people fighting against their oppressor as rapists, it's a long-term strategy. Remember, they used to smear our black ancestors who was victim of the Jim Crow black code laws. You know, where they raped thousands of black men across the United States, lynched them, raped them, cut and burned their genital off. They created thousands and thousands of single mothers all throughout the countries in the black community. It's something that took a generation to begin to bail ourselves out of. Can you imagine the breadwinner being picked out of a community over the course of decades, thousands and thousands of families? That is the reality of the crimes that white America committed against us. And that's why white boys, they can't reconcile with that. That's why they complain about critical race theory. Stop convincing Timmy to hate his country. No, this is what you guys did. And then in order to cover for their crimes, Emmett Telsey, we got a great audience here. In order to cover for the crime, you know what the white boys did? And they do it to this day. They pass down techniques in order to be violent colonizers. They smear black men. You know how they smear black men as being sexual deviants who want to rape the white women? That's why people like Emmett Till that got lynched. That was the trope they used to justify their apartheid of black Americans. And was that new? No, it wasn't new. They did the same thing to the indigenous population where they would smear the Native Americans as savages who wanted to rape white women. You guys see how this is a common tactic? And that's why I picked up on that bullshit immediately when Zionists and Western chauvinists tried to smear our Palestinian brothers and sisters as rapists. I immediately picked up on it. I wasn't like Anna Kasparian and TYT who spread the mass rape hoax. There are a lot of people who call themselves pro-Palestine. Like, yeah, I condemn Hamas because I acknowledge that resistance organizations engage in rape. I don't understand. I don't read history. I don't understand power dynamics. They're the dum-dums who are useful idiots of the Zionist regime. Now, there are a lot of great journalists on the ground. There are a lot of journalists, like, for example, in the Gray Zone, who did a great job debunking the rape hoax and the nonsense. But you guys see how it's just common sense. If you just read about the operation, which they don't like talking about the operation, because then you got to get into the Hannibal Directive. Then you got to get into the fact that many of the people they claim that was raped on October 7th, their family came out themselves and said that their daughters and their sons mostly daughters wasn't raped on October 7th because they didn't want their child legacy to be defined by untruth. That was what few the Israeli families were saying. And I'm gonna bring on our guest. We got Jason Smith. I can't wait to dive into the Trump summit with our friend Jason Smith. I'm gonna be bringing him on very soon. We have a banger guest, our personal China correspondent in a way. I'm gonna bring him in very soon. But you got the reason I went all the way into all this stuff is because the New York Times were trying to pretend this obviously fake rape hoax by Hamas existed, and they did that just so these Zionists can fucking chill. And they still, you guys see how they won't give an inch? Even if you lie on their behalf, they will still call for your head. The person who I just explained a little bit longer than I planned for the last 10 minutes on why the beginning of this entire New York Times article smearing Hamas as rapists is complete nonsense, but he did it anyway because he was like, well, yeah, I'm a painfully expose how our dear beloved Israelis engage in rape, but don't forget Hamas does too. Come on, bro. But here are the right to rape protests. This is in New York. This is in New York. Boycott the Times. They're saying boycott the Times. Ew. Can you imagine the smell? Can you imagine the smell of this place? Disgusting child killing ball worshippers here. So it says several hundred demonstrators outside the New York Times protest the Christoph column. Once again, can you imagine the smell? These inbred motherfuckers. They're not demanding an investigation. Notice that? It's not like, man, we really support the Jewish state, but we want to make sure they're not engaging in rape in our name. It's none of that. They're not calling for an investigation. It's just the idea that the Goyim would ever expose the crimes and the true barbarity of their state. This is one of the lead organizers. Look at these fascists, these genocidal Zionist scum, these utter cockroaches on society. I led hundreds of Jews in protests outside the New York Times headquarters today to shame them for repeatedly spreading blood libels against the Jewish people and only Jewish state. Enough is enough. This is why I call it Jew. This is why it's Jewish supremacy. It's because the idea that the Goyim, hell, even people in their own community, the anti-Zionist Jews, the idea that we're not allowed to criticize them at all. We will rape your Goyim. We will commit massive atrocities, use collective punishment as a tool of war. We will use sexual violence as a tool of war. And if you oppose the crimes of the God-chosen people, we will smear you as anti-Semitic, a terrorist sympathizer, boycott, and intimidate you, because this is a typical Zionist intimidation tactic. Just a few more things to show you, and I'm going to bring my guest in, Jason Smith. One of my favorite guests to talk to. A great guest to have for our next segment. We're going to cover the G Summit next. Here's just a few reactions. Benjamin Netanyahu, today I instructed my legal advisors to consider the harshest legal action against the New York Times and Nicholas Kristof. I don't know, I just can't wait for discovery. They defamed the soldiers of Israel and perpetuated in blood libel about rape, trying to create a false symmetry between the genocidal terrorists of Hamas and Israel's violent soldiers. Under my leadership, Israel will not be silent. Bro, you guys should be blessed. And it's actually an insult of humanity if anyone ever compares Israel to Hamas. Like, that should be the highest compliment if you're an Israeli. Because it's absolutely not true. It's actually pretty disgusting. Anyway, this is the Israel Foreign Ministry. They having a meltdown. They're essentially them saying they're going to sue them. Meanwhile, I showed you guys in my hotspot video. That's why it was a longer hotspot video in the beginning. Where when you listen to what Israelis are saying in Hebrew, like what they say in English is completely different than the shit they be saying in Hebrew. It's like one of the most common trope that Israelis engage in. Like Benjamin Netanyahu, he will give a speech, and one would be in English, and he would be saying some shit like, "Yeah, we want to make sure we stand for democracy in Gaza. We want to liberate the Iranian people. We want to make sure we import Western democracy in the Middle East." That's what he would say to American audience, and then he will give a speech in Hebrew when he releases to the Israelis, and he'd be like, "Yeah, we're gonna kill all the infidels, all our enemies. We're gonna implement the Amalek procedures. We're gonna establish Greater Israel. We're gonna kill all the Iranians. We're gonna purge them all out of Gaza. We're gonna engage in ethnic cleansing." It's two completely different speeches, and that's the same with the Israelis. They do this all the time. Because if you look at Israeli social media, and this is what this person is explaining, they just openly joking about the fact that there are soldiers engaged in anal rape of Palestinian prisoners. Someone posted this meme on a popular Israeli Facebook meme group, joking about the Seed T-men rape. The caption says, "Reservists at Seed T-men when they see a Nuakba." I don't know how to say that word there. And the subtitles say, "Yalla to the ass fast." Israeli, they were some corny motherfuckers, man. What the like? The punchline is just the barbarity, I guess. And then a woman commented saying, "When my husband did his service in the prison service in 2015, before everyone had phone cameras," I think this is Caddy Start here, the pro-rape Israeli Jewess. She said her husband did prison service in 2015 before everyone had phone cameras, and it was a well-known practice. That's what she's saying here. It's a well-known practice. That's why they had to pause the Hebrew translations, because they started rolling out translations for Hebrew on X, and then everyone was like, "Bro, what the fuck?" Now you see why they brought back this dead language, so people don't know what they're actually saying. I showed these on the hotspot. These are the videos I show on the hotspot. Them just admitting the fact that they engage in rape. So this is why this is the hard line in the sand for me, man. This is why I have a hard time ever reconciling with people who are liberal Zionists, reconciling with people who condemn Hamas, condemn the resistance, and say stupid shit like Israel has the right to exist. Because this is the state you guys are saying has the right to exist. Completely and utterly absurd. Yeah, we absolutely do. I end the segment on the super chat. Let's bring our guest in. I'm gonna bring in Jason Smith here. Let's read the super chat. It's a good way to let me know when the segment ended. We gotta get in the habit of saving articles to hard drives for when they get eventually scrubbed. Bro, the way they have scrubbed the internet for so many articles, I remember reading like yesterday. I explained this on Jamal's show. And I think I explained this on the channel too. Like, bro, all the old school BBC, CNN articles that used to write about Ukraine, ask Zoya, ask anyone who was around, there was articles all the time about the barbarity of the Banderite Nazis in Ukraine and how they will write about the Ukrainian Civil War. That's what they used to call it in the West. This civil war between the fascists who want to suppress the ethnic Russians who rebelled against the government after the Maidan coup. And then after the Russian special military operation, this history was completely wiped out from Western corporate media memory, and they try to scrub as many articles as possible, and they are so hard to find. There's like a handful of them I can still find. I'll show you guys the UN reports. There's a few BBC articles you can find, but the control and censorship of the internet by the ruling class, they know what they're doing. They realize that this freedom of information is dangerous to them. But anyway, let's get into our This is supposed to be our main segment. I ranted a lot on the Israeli segment there. But we have the host of the Bridge to China podcast, amazing geopolitical reporter and analyst reporting out of China, an American in China, also a very prominent author as well. And I think one of our favorite China correspondents. We love having Jason on the show. Thank you for joining us today. We had lots to discuss. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a pre-segment before the conference between Donald Trump and Xi started, and I was very excited with how it's going to go. And this was essentially my summary I posted on Next. You had Xi Jinping. I want to get your thoughts on it, but based on what happened, you had Xi Jinping in China that completely mobbed the United States, completely flexed on the United States, and it was a dawn of a obviously new era of the G2, where these are the top dogs, and even the United States have to accomplish it. So this was my summary, and I want you to take it from here on what your analysis of the G-Trump summary was. But you have Xi Jinping, the Chad himself. He called the United States a declining nation to their face. We're going to get to that here very soon. Threatened the United States on Taiwan, drawing a hard red line on Taiwan. And then while listening to Donald Trump call him a great leader and grovel towards him, just a common Xi Jinping W. So that's my funny shit post on it. But what's your analysis as someone who reports from China? How was it received in China? What was the overall perceptions of how the meeting went? Once again, thank you for joining us, Jason.
I'm really happy to be here. This is a really complicated outcome because it went so well. But there are so many other factors besides the fact that there has been some kind of grand bargain. The reality is we're talking about Donald Trump. This is a person, along with Marco Rubio and Hegseth, who just blew up a school 2 months ago in Iran, bombing civilian infrastructure, blowing up power plants, blowing up hospitals, and then basically were defeated. They keep claiming victory ridiculously, but the 3 U.S. aircraft carriers are 600 miles away from Iran because they know if they get any closer that they'll probably be destroyed. This follows a January kidnapping of a foreign dignitary, a leader, an elected leader in Venezuela, where they killed 100 people in that country to bring their leader and his wife back to the United States for an illegal trial. So, I mean, we need to keep in mind that, yes, things went well with President Xi and President Trump's meeting, but who are we talking about? We're talking about the president of the United States with the lowest approval rating in the history of our country, lower than Nixon. And also, it's kind of historically, interesting that Nixon was the most important visit to China in our history of any U.S. dignitary or president. So we have Nixon coming to China, making a grand bargain, and then Trump coming and making a grand bargain. Maybe there's some lesson there. But I mean, the reality is that Chinese media loved this trip. I don't know a single Chinese journalist in China that isn't having, the best week of their life watching all of this go down. The United States has run aground. Their ship is cracks. It's leaking. The U.S. economy is on the verge. Basically, if China's open source, because it's actually open source AI, continues to enter into the United States, we're looking at a catastrophic recession coming in the United States because 40% of all investments in the U.S. stock market are related to AI. 40% we're talking about trillions of dollars invested in AI infrastructure and no energy infrastructure to support that. And China is making it for free and leaving the code open source and putting it all over the world. So companies like Anthropic are not going to be able to sell multi-million, 7-figure deals for their product because China is giving the same product out all over the world for free. So this 40% of the U.S. Stock market investments are going to collapse at some point. Ben Norton has called it the largest bubble in the history of the world. We're talking about a potential catastrophic recession in the United States at a time when the world is realizing that the United States no longer has the military capabilities that it once has. I mean, if you have a ground launching missile launcher and it has good range and excellent accuracy, you can trump over the United States military at this point because the conventional way that the United States has been carrying out wars for the last several decades, maybe, you know, 3/4 of a century, is no longer effective against the kind of technology that exists today. I mean, after the United States waged its war of aggression against Iran, you know, that map that everyone sees of all the US bases around Iran? Well, now you look at that map and there's only 1 or 2 of them left, because all of those bases have been demolished, completely and utterly wiped from the face of the earth. US soldiers are staying in hotels in those countries if they haven't been recalled. The United States has no capabilities near Iran whatsoever, and the Strait of Hormuz is completely and functionally being operated by Iran. And Chinese ships, as we all know, are just traveling straight through. Obviously, you know, you were just talking about Israel. This is a huge problem for Israel as well, because Israeli ships can't travel through there. So it's also in Israel's interest that Trump go to Beijing and beg for some kind of deal. Now, what has really come out of that? And you pointed out Taiwan. That's really important, because I have been saying, and a lot of analysts have been saying, that if the United States were to just back off on Taiwan, then the United States could have all kinds of deals, because China really cares about this one topic way above everything else. China is willing to buy Boeings. China is willing to buy soybeans. China is willing to do all kinds of things internationally. However, China is not willing to let go of its own territory. So Taiwan is a deal breaker, and that's why Xi Jinping brought it up on more than one occasion, and that's probably why Trump refused to answer questions about it publicly, because when they were having their private meetings, this is probably what they discussed, not just when they were drinking champagne at dinner and all of the international media was there filming Elon Musk sitting there acting like a child. The reality is that the United States now needs China. If you just go back 6 months, you know, Marco Rubio was saying the most slanderous things about China that he could in his position. He was using the most aggressive language possible to describe China. And now he's like, oh, well, I guess we just really want to make sure Taiwan isn't taken forcefully. So I think what may have happened is the United States is going to back off on Taiwan on the condition that China resolve the issue peacefully. If you go to the 1978 or 72 communique between the United States and China, this is what the United States already promised China, that as long as everything gets resolved peacefully on their own, that it's an internal Chinese matter, and that the United States official policy is to recognize that there is one China and that Taiwan is part of China. So all Trump and his team did was reaffirm what the United States already has been saying. Now, the purchase of 200 Boeings is really important for the United States economy, although 4% of Boeing stocks were wiped out by that purchase, because some were predicting as high as 500 Boeing jets being purchased. But the reason that's what is significant is because Boeings were falling out of the sky a few years ago. I mean, they were crashing left and right all over the world. So the fact that China is willing to buy them, you know, is kind of like China saying, yeah, we'll buy your defective products because it's good for our relationship. In terms of, but, you know, we also have to keep in mind, you know, a lot of Western media pundits, while this were happening, were so shocked and surprised. Wow, China wants to be our partner. They're saying it publicly. I can't believe this. Some post that went viral, 10 million views, people saying this. China has been saying the exact same thing for decades.
Yes.
In the last several years, Xi Jinping has constantly been saying, you know, we support Make America Great Again, even. I mean, President Xi Jinping said your plan to make America great again is, you know, coincides with China's international plans as well. China doesn't want to see the United States collapse. China wants to see other nations in the world rise. And that doesn't necessarily mean at the collapse or fall of the United States. China and BRICS, you know, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, and many other nations which have joined, because it's now called BRICS Plus around the world, are seeking, you know, to mutually invest in projects, build bridges, hospitals, schools. China has built thousands of schools, hundreds of hospitals, mostly in Africa, but countries all over the world, because China wants to see a level playing field, which makes it difficult for the Euro-American imperialists to exploit the world. There are copper factories and there are other factories being developed in Africa after centuries of the deliberate underdevelopment.
Did Jason freeze for anyone else?
Developing directly because China wants to rebuild the world in a new image where the Europeans and the Americans no longer have the capabilities of exploiting everyone around the world. We need to remember that in 1949, after the Japanese fascists invaded China, and following the UK, France, Germany, and the United States invading China multiple times, that China was as poor as any poor country in the entire world. What did it do in the late 1960s? It built railroads in Africa, the Tazara Railway. Why did it do that at a time when Chinese people were literally starving to death in some cases? That's the definition of extreme poverty. 300 million Chinese people were in extreme poverty. And here's China building a railway in Africa. It's because China was building South-South connections. Global South connecting with the Global South to build a new kind of world. Well, today we see that new kind of world being developed. We see power shifting in the world where all of these underdeveloped countries, these historically underdeveloped countries, finally have infrastructure, their own ability to build their economies, and they're diversifying away from oil. And the Trump war on the people of Iran, the aggressive war on the people of Iran, has actually accelerated that. There's a massive spike in importation of solar, which means the developing world and the developed world are diversifying away from oil, weakening the dollar, because the dollar is in part based on the petrodollar, the fact that people have been trading in dollars to buy oil. So Trump has massively accelerated the decline of the United States and the dollar in the international community. This is the only play Trump had. And if you look at Trump, Biden, and the former Trump administration, their plan was never to really be friends with China. Their plan was to cripple the Chinese economy. They arrogantly thought that they could do that, and they utterly failed. And so Trump's massive turn to Beijing and his, President Xi, we're such great friends, I love you so much speeches are really about, well, we fucked up, and now we need to go make amends.
Yeah, what a fantastic analysis. There's so many different threads that I can pull from there. But regarding China's development in Africa, we start there because there's so many different things I want to address. It's one of the reasons why shitlibs will never convince me, neocons will never convince me to hate China. Do you see the tariff-free program they had going on in Africa, where they lifted essentially all tariffs except one very small African country, and that's only because they're like one of the 14 countries. There's only like 14, 15 countries in the entire world that recognizes Taiwan as an independent country. Westerners never tell you that.
I'm not sure. We could Google it. But
How many is it?
Botswana is the only country in Africa. There's 54 countries that are recognized. 53 received zero tariff exports to China. That means that a farmer, anywhere in Africa, you're in the Sudan, you're growing, I don't know, whatever it is that you're growing, you want to export that to China, there's no tariffs at all. So suddenly your market grows from just Sudan to Sudan and 1.4 billion customers. So it potentially could change a lot of things. So I really want to see that develop. I go to a lot of expos in China, for example, CICPE, which is in Haikou. A lot of African countries, they're trying to find consumers in China. They're trying to make business deals with Chinese consumers, with Chinese companies to export their goods to China. I mean, 1.4 billion people, but 700 million of those are middle class now.
Yeah. And I'm glad the tide is starting to shift. Like, I was celebrating a few polls that showed the Americans' attitude towards China is shifting. Among the registered voters in the United States, they don't really ask us, but during these polls with registered voters, the views of Americans regarding China is always like so crushingly low. Like the same with Iran, Russia, but that is starting to shift because people need to understand that China, they want, like you mentioned earlier, he just want a partnership. They always talk about having a partnership with the United States. And unlike the barbaric United States and the West, China doesn't seek to export their ideology around the world. You guys see how the United States and the neocon class, they sanction 1/3 of the world's population. They do that in an attempt to influence their politics, to make them embrace capitalism. Anyone who doesn't bow to the United States is attacked via sanctions, and that's how they put pressure on governments in order to try and manipulate populations to go get. It's an attempt to export their ideology all around the world. China doesn't work like that. China is not trying to export their Chinese socialism, their market socialist system. And that's why the American freak out over China inherently doesn't make sense to me. Like there would be like these polls where like majority of Americans view China as a number one threat to America. What do you mean threat? They just want to sell us stuff. Like people, there would be like EU officials that say they would be afraid of the China threat. How are we going to tackle the China threat? Oh no, man! Just give up your ambitions on Taiwan first, and then you guys can continue to do amazing business with China. And that's why their foreign policy direction is something I can never approve of. I want to get your thoughts on this because you also quickly touch on this. There's so much to cover on the summit and what you add. You briefly mentioned China buying Boeing planes. I saw articles. I'll put this up. I try to find another receipt on this. I was reading how China is like, despite the United States giving them permission to buy NVIDIA chips, China is like, nah, we're good. This is why they apparently like we're good on buying these chips. So I want to hear your thoughts on like how China responded to the giant capitalist, all the capitalists coming over and trying to gain business with China. Like you saw how Elon Musk, all these CEOs that wanted China to open up. That was one of the big narratives, how we want to go to China and force them to open up their economy. So I want to ask you a question because I'm kind of curious on how China reacted to that, like reacted to the appearance of Elon and all these they're like these CEOs of like 15, 16 different businesses that was there at China. So do you want to speak on that a little bit more before we move on? I'm going to get to the foreign policy part of this that you mentioned here later, but I wanted to speak more on the businesses. What's your thoughts on how China handled that?
Wow, there's so much individuality between these characters on the world stage. Jensen Huang has no chance of selling chips anytime soon unless there's another negotiation specifically for that based on some kind of reciprocity because of the way that the United States has treated China vis-a-vis chips over the last 8 years. So from the first Trump administration to now, the United States has basically said, we don't want you to have this. We're not going to let you have this. It's like the kid in high school who's trying to keep the basketball away from you and treating you like a total douche. And so basically, they're like, oh, we'll walk around. There's another ball over here. We just, we'll make our own. And basically, that's what China has done. China no longer needs them. And China has a real, they want to prove it now. At this point, it's like, you know what? We know we don't need your chips anymore to have better AI data centers than you. We can do it domestically. They don't have as small of chips, but they can stack them and do other things technologically with them to get the exact same result. And so now China is no longer interested in doing that because they don't want the United States to have a victory after, basically the United States has been salting the earth with China on this topic. And it's really kind of like no, now that, you said we're going to have this war over chips, we're going to beat you at it. And so Jensen Huang has no chance. Even after when China finally caught up, that's when the United States was like, oh, quickly, dump. And the reason is because they want to make China dependent on the United States for chips moving on into the future. And China wants to actually develop its domestic capabilities. And this is actually part of a much broader set of policies in China that are based on self-sufficiency. Does China want to engage in the international community to trade? Yes. They want to buy cocoa and finished products and chocolate from Africa and other nations around the world, but they also don't want to be dependent on importing anything. China can finally feed itself. This is a recent accomplishment. China has the capability of giving itself all of the calories that it needs and maintaining nutrition for all citizens. However, China continues to trade internationally so that we can get specialized products and engage in the international community and allow its citizens to have access to whatever it wants. But China has also been doing this in energy. The solar push isn't just to save the world from global climate change. The solar push is to diversify away from fossil fuels, which the United States largely controls on a global scale. By developing all of these solar and wind and nuclear facilities, basically China is saying we can make our own energy and we can make it better than you. And China now has more energy infrastructure than any country in the world. And as much as Europe and the United States combined. And that is, a lot of it is renewable. China is still importing coal and other things for its energy purposes, but in the future, within 10 years, China won't need to if it doesn't want to. So chips are a part of this portfolio. China wants to make its own chips. And within a few years, China will be making the best chips in the world. And what people don't realize when they talk about the fact that the United States and some of its close allies make the best chips and the smallest chips in the world is that China makes the most amount of microchips in the world, because most products that you need don't need really tiny microchips. That's just for very limited applications. Your coffee maker or your radio or your TV or your computer screen or whatever it is, most of those are made in China. Who makes the most electronic devices in the world? China. So who's buying most of the chips? China. So they make tons of these larger, older styles of chips. And so China is already the largest producer, already has the most applied robotics, has the best skilled labor force in the world. And so if it wants to make smaller chips in the next 5 years, why would it go to Jensen Huang and give the industry away to the United States? It doesn't make any sense. But I want to talk about Elon Musk, because you asked about not just Jensen, but all of these gentlemen. Elon Musk, and it defies my logic, because we're Americans. We know what Doge did to our government and to small, all these employees of the government, and how he cut all this fat. But most of the fat that he cut were the people investigating him. But he is a beloved figure in China. Chinese people love Elon Musk. They make jokes about him. They have pictures of him. They want selfies with him if they can. He has a factory in Shanghai. This factory is actually a really interesting story, because it's a part of a new kind of special economic zone. The entire factory was built and paid for by China. So the Tesla Gigafactory in China, which actually exports the most Teslas of any of his facilities in the world, was a gift to China based on like a package deal that eventually they will start paying taxes, and it will begin to benefit the Chinese government and the Chinese people. But people love Tesla here. If you go for long drives on the highway, which I do, you'll see Teslas again and again and again. People love Tesla. Actually, even, you have BYD and Chery and NIO and hardcore people who really love China and want China to diversify away from the West. They will say, oh, BYD is the best. And BYD has amazing things. But Chinese people still love Tesla. And I think it's neck and neck with BYD. If you take NIO and Chery and BYD and all of these Chinese mega companies together, they sell more NEVs or EVs around the world than Tesla does. But Tesla is neck and neck with BYD at the front runners among the big two in the world. So, I think Elon Musk, if he, makes a humanoid robot Optimus and eventually wants to sell it in China, people will buy it just because he makes it. In terms of what other big companies were able to, their own individual deals that they were able to make, obviously Boeing did sell 200. That's a start. Maybe China will buy more in the future if Boeing's crash rate changes, if there are a few planes falling out of the sky. So that is good news for American manufacturers. I have to say that despite the fact that I am a socialist and I support China's economy, and I think there is an enormous amount that we in the United States should learn about how to manage our CEOs and our companies and our markets and have SOEs, that I am delighted that our two countries have sort of reconciled, at least in terms of personality, and at least in terms of recognizing that we're mutually interdependent. Because war, you're talking about rape at the beginning of the show. When you have war, you have rape, you have murder, you have broken families, you have creating handicapped people, just everything that's bad that can happen, disease, malnutrition, every single thing that we consider horrific as human beings. War causes more of all of those things. And so if the United States and China are actually able to reconcile and to recognize that we're partners and to work together as friends in some way and manage our partnership, that's good. That's good for humanity. 350 million Americans and 1.4 billion Chinese going to war would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to all humanity ever.
Yeah, very well said. And that's why I was tweeting about yesterday, because I was hate watching all the neocons on corporate media trying to see how they was analyzing the Trump-China summit. And CNN and MSNBC, were absolutely furious. Like, they was seething the entire time. We don't have time tonight. I may do some more propaganda reports. Like if you guys, the Morning Joe segment, the morning of, it was like steam coming out of their ears. They were so furious. They were like, this is another example of Trump being weak on China, and he's trying to give up Taiwan because he loves authoritarian tyrants. They were very upset, especially when he praised Xi as a great leader. I'll show you guys one day. I don't feel like torturing you guys tonight. But they're like, this is another example of how Trump like to buddy with authoritarian leaders. And why would we even be in China? What do the United States gain from engaging in diplomacy with China? I don't know, avoiding war, like you were just mentioning. And the idea that it's a sort of bad thing that a president will reach out and try to establish relations with China is another example how the neoliberal class, they are deranged just like the Trump Epstein class. Because there was liberals who was freaking out at Donald Trump for like the only good thing he ever done was when he reached out to the DPRK. Like when he reached out to Kim Jong-un, he was like, look, let's see if we can have dialogue. And you guys, liberals still haven't forgiven him for that. to this day, they will still bring that up, and they will bring it up all the time. Yeah, this is just another example of him trying to appease authoritarians, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Putin. Why does he love tyrants, but he hate Europe? That's what MSNBC and CNN, and they're still on it right now. They're still melting down over the last 24 hours over the idea of peace. But let's dive into. I want to show you guys some receipts, some footages. I was just laughing at this. I played a little bit of this earlier in the background. What's funny about this? This is Donald Trump shaking hands with the Epstein demons. Like diplomacy is a motherfucker, man. That's why it will hardly be a statesman to shake the hand of the bald rats. Like you can tell he kind of perplexed because look at the reason why I want to show. Look at Stephen Miller. Look at Xi Jinping. He look at Stephen Miller like, look at this fucking rat. Look at the way he mocked Stephen Miller. Am I the only one who saw that? Look, he stares at everyone shortly, but look how long he looks at this fucking demon, this Zionist, Jewish supremacist rat. Look at Xi Jinping clocking him immediately. Clocking that boy immediately. Like, look, that's what they look like in person. This is the moment that led to a lot of meltdown on corporate media. Donald Trump calling Xi Jinping a great leader, which I think is kind of an objective fact at this point. But let's listen here.
You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want.
So that moment right there is where all the neocons and the Midas Touch, Lincoln Project, you're going to hear them, you're going to see attack ads about Donald Trump in the lead up in the midterm and throughout the next few years of them just attacking him. Donald Trump praises Xi. How dare he? I want to get your thoughts on this because as Donald Trump was sucking up to Xi Jinping essentially called the United States a declining country. And how do you say it? Thucydides?
Yeah, that's close enough.
Thucydides?
Thucydides.
You guys already knew there was no chance of me getting that right. Thucydides. Anyway, talk about the Thucydides trap. I'll play the clip, and I want to get your thoughts on the message that Xi is sending here. I'll play it in full first, and I want you to comment on it.
The whole world is watching our meeting. Currently, transformation not seen in a century is accelerating across the globe, and the international situation is fluid and turbulent. The world has come to a new crossroads. Can China and the United States overcome the Thucydides trap and create a new paradigm of major country relations? Can we meet global challenges together and provide more stability for the world? Can we, in the interests of the well-being of our two peoples and the future of humanity, build a brighter future together for our bilateral relations? These are the questions vital to history, to the world, and to the people. They are the questions of our times that you and I need to answer as leaders of major countries. This year,
So that's him, and this like for this Gordon Chang, and a lot of people immediately picked up on what the fuck G actually just said there, and Donald Trump being a dumbass just nodding along. Yeah, Thucydides's trap. Yeah, that's very cool, man. And then after the meeting was done, they went to Donald Trump like, "Hey, man, he essentially called you a pussy, bro." Hey, Donald Trump, he was talking. He essentially said the United States is declining. Here's Gordon Chang. Today, Xi Jinping insulted Trump by publicly mentioning the Thucydides's trap in front of him, implying that the United States is a declining power and China is a rising one, which led to this panic post, because this is what I'm talking about. He had no idea what Xi Jinping was talking about, and now he's in full-blown cult mode. Like, no, when he said the United States was a declining country, he was actually talking about Joe Biden. So he had no idea what was going on. So what are your thoughts on this, Jason? I just found this part kind of funny.
I think it's amusing that I think President Xi actually assumed Donald Trump would know that. So maybe that's how little Chinese understand how uneducated our politicians really are. But the Thucydides trap is a term created by a professor at Harvard in the United States of America, Graham Allison. So, this is an American idea that America is in decline, that is accepted among intellectuals in our ivory towers in the United States. So President Xi just assumed, this comes from America. You guys came up with this term. We're just like nodding along, because since 2010, at least, the United States has been a declining power. You can see it's not actually, what's really interesting is the United States is growing GDP 1% to 2% a year on most average. What's happening is that most other countries around the world, except Europe, are growing faster than the United States. So the United States is being shrunk in the international community by comparison. If you look at India's GDP growth rate, it's higher than China's actually. It's close to 7-8%. So, Indonesia's GDP is astoundingly high, and China's GDP of 5% a year for the last several years is adding $1 trillion to China's economy every single year. So the United States is declining relatively to other international powers around the world. This is an observable fact. Gordon Chang, by the way, doesn't know what he's talking about. And actually, President Donald Trump said as much about 3 weeks ago when he said, "I've listened to this Gordon Chang. He doesn't know what he is talking about." That's an exact quote.
Is that what Donald Trump said about him?
Yes.
Wow. That's damning. That must hurt, because he's on Fox News all the time. He talks to that deranged white lady, Maria Baratova, whatever her name is. She's deranged. She's like one of the most anti-China hawks. She's one of the people they trust to talk about foreign policy. And she always brings on Gordon Chang to explain to the American people why China is evil and why they're about to collapse any moment now. Like, he wrote a book like 25 years ago, like, why China is about to collapse.
Exactly, yes.
Any moment now. So even Donald Trump, like, man, this guy's a dumbass. He's making us all look bad. He's actually making us all look bad.
But imagine being called a dumbass by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It's bad when the class clown is calling you a clown.
Yeah. I need to find this clip. I should have brought it. There's a clip I saw recently. I'm trying to see if I can find it, where Xi Jinping is discussing how much he reads American literature and how he knows way more about. This is not exactly what I'm looking for. I'm trying to desperately find it here. This is just one example.
Well, while you're looking, I just want to point out the fact that President Xi lived in the United States. He attended university in the United States, lived with an American family. There's pictures of him in San Francisco with Golden Gate Bridge behind him. He does know America. When he goes back to the United States for his periodic visits, he goes and visits the family with whom he lived in the United States.
Yeah. And I guess I can read this passage. This passage is not exactly what I'm looking for, but I think it sums up what I mean here. I saw this video not too long ago. I was hoping I could find it. Where he was obviously much younger, and he was discussing how much he loves American literature and what he read. I'll pull this up, because I think this is an article summing it up. Xi Jinping is more American than most Americans. From a 2015 speech, The Chinese people have always held American entrepreneurship and creativity in high regards. So this is a speech that Xi gave 10 years ago, apparently. In my younger years, I read the Federalist Papers and Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I think this is the exact thing I saw, but this is like written down instead. I was interested in the life story and thinking of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, and other American statesmen. I also read the works of Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman, Mark Twain, and Jack London. I was most captivated by Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man of the Sea and its description of the howling winds, driving rain, roaring waves, small boat, the old man, and the sharks. So when I visited Cuba for the first time, I paid a special visit to the breakwater and the Cozumel where Hemingway wrote the book. And in my second visit to Cuba, I dropped by the bar Hemingway frequented and ordered a mojito, his favorite rum with mint leaves and ice. The point he's making, you guys see how well read and how he studies history. He said a quote, and this is not exactly the passage where he said it. He said it's extremely important to read about the history of other cultures, and he was obsessed with reading about not only just American culture, but Latin America, history of Europe. Now compare that to an average American leader. Compare that to these bumbling idiots that you see elected to Senate, all these bumbling idiots in Congress, all these people in the Trump administration who couldn't even accurately tell you the history of their own country. I think that's the very long-winded point I'm making. Like the difference between these leaders it's so tangible.
Well, the reality is that all of the elected leaders in the standing committee are incredibly well-read people. Most of them have master's degrees. Some of them have PhDs. I mean, that's why a lot of analysts refer to China as a technocracy, because it's ruled by people who belong there, who actually know what they're talking about, who understand how to develop their economy, and they do care about their people. What is it Trump just said recently? I don't think about the people when I'm making new policies. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus Christ. But I'm back. I accidentally put the back button again. I keep doing that on this new computer. Going back to your original analysis, because once again, you broke down so many things in your initial analysis. I wanted to take them piece by piece. We briefly mentioned foreign policy. And the Trump team keep putting out this readout that seems to be different from the Chinese readout of what happened. Because they was telling the Fox News neocons in the media in order to sate their bloodlust. Like there's a Brett Baier interview I may show you guys where he's just pressing Trump on like, why are we doing this? Why do we need any diplomacy with China at all? Like once again, the neocons are fuming over this. They know that, like you mentioned, Chinese reporters are having a field day over this. My friends at RT, I have RT reporters. I see they're having a field day with this. Like in India, at India Times, they're having a field day. I think the Hinduans time they call it. They're having a field day with this. Press TV, like the anti-imperialist media apparatus, we're eating good because of this. So Trump had to make up a bunch of bullshit that China seems to be correcting today. So one thing that Donald Trump was saying after this meeting, he was like, well, I was getting China. China said they're going to agree to talk Iran out of fighting back, essentially. Now, this is what I read today. Now, China was like, hold up, we didn't say that. China has explicitly informed the United States that it recognizes Iran's exercise of sovereignty over the Straits of Hormuz. That is about as close as you're going to get to China ever saying, hey, man, Iran has the right to give you those hands. Like, you know personally, Jason, China, they've always been advocate of people denuclearizing against Iran getting a nuclear weapon. They always try to find peace in any situation possible. But when it comes to the Straits of Hormuz and Iran fighting against the United States, they're like, nah, you guys deserve these hands. and that's essentially what Xi and China is saying in this meeting. And I'll play this clip. I'll get your thoughts on this. Here's Sean Hannity asking if Donald Trump confronted Xi about China helping helping Iran. And here's Trump's reaction. Essentially, Iran told him to get fucking lost.
issue and you've been asked about it, and you've spoken about it, and that is China's support of Iran. How big a discussion was that today?
We discussed it. I mean, when you say support, they're not fighting a war with us or anything.
No.
He said he's not going to give military equipment. That's a big statement. He said that today. That's a big statement. He said that strongly. But at the same time, he said, they buy a lot of their oil there, and they'd like to keep doing that.
So yeah, I'm gonna keep buying oil over there. I don't give a fuck what you're talking about. But Jason, I want you to speak more on this about China's open position about the Iran war. What's your thoughts on this? Any reactions?
Well, as you know, China continues to do business with pretty much any country that diplomatically recognizes the People's Republic of China anywhere in the world. China does business with Ukraine. China does business with Russia. China does business with the United States. China does business with Iran. President Xi Jinping's, I actually believe Trump is right for once, and he's reporting about what Xi Jinping said to him. China is not selling weapons to Iran. China is selling the inputs that Iran is maybe using to make weapons. But so is the United States. China is selling, rare earth minerals to the United States and the Pentagon and, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. They're all making weapons with the inputs that they're buying from China. China sells things, mostly peaceful things, throughout the entire world. And if those countries choose to use some of those inputs for their own manufacturing purposes to make weapons, China's not going to, interfere in the internal policies of those countries. That is exactly the policy of China, not to, and you mentioned this earlier, not to interfere in the internal policies of other countries around the world. China will do business with anyone who recognizes the PRC and who has peaceful relations with the PRC. No matter which side. This cuts both ways. People who are pro-Russia, they're like, oh, China is selling stuff to Ukraine. People who are pro-Ukraine, they're like, oh, China is selling stuff to Russia. But it sells to the United States and Iran. If Iran wants to make drones with that or missiles with that, that's up to the people of Iran. China is not trying to aggravate war. And if the United States and Iran wanted China to be the ones that they sat down in Beijing to make peace, I'm sure that they would be the ones that would, facilitate that kind of meeting. Right now, those meetings are happening, or supposedly supposed to be happening in Pakistan, but they could just as easily be happening in Beijing. Beijing wants peace. China has not had a war in 45 years. It was a month-long war with Vietnam because Vietnam invaded its neighbor. So 46 almost years of peace for China. United States, endless wars, constantly, multiple countries at the same time. Iran also, decades of peace before the United States invaded Iran. Iran has been a very peaceful, very stable nation until the United States created a war of aggression on the people of Iran. So no, I do believe that Xi Jinping that China is not selling weapons directly to Iran. But if Iran makes weapons out of some of the inputs and some of the goods that are coming from China, that's business. That's how the world works. That's how international trade works.
Yeah. And we're almost done here. We're getting to the last part of this. Once again, it's great to have you on the show. Your analysis on these things is top notch as always. We're going to quickly dive back into Taiwan because, once again, your original analysis has so much into it. We're going to get back to the Taiwan thing here. And I'm going to show you guys how it's clear that Xi Jinping gave this boy Donald Trump a stern talking to about Iran. So Donald Trump, believe it or not, is actually showing way more statesmanship and restraint than Joe Biden did. Because do you guys remember when Joe Biden caused a diplomatic uproar, an international incident where his team had to walk back? They had Jake Sullivan, they had Anthony Blinken all come up, put out statements saying, no, what Biden truly meant was, because Biden put out a statement that said, oh yeah, we will militarily defend Taiwan and it will be start of a war if China seeks reunification. And everyone, including people on right-wing media, I've seen it. I covered it at the time. They were like, bro, are you out of your goddamn mind? You're not supposed to say that. So Donald Trump, after this China summit, is showing way more restraint than the previous leader of the Democratic Party. So the question is bro, what did you tell this man?
You're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons.
I know this video is pretty quiet. Let's play it. I'll read what it said.
You're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons for Taiwan.
That's right.
Is that
I'm
moving
holding
forward?
it. Well, I haven't approved it yet. We're going to see what happens.
So that Fox News hey man, you gonna still send those weapons to Taiwan? You gotta see how Trump was set straight. Trump Trump was so scared, and after the GDP meeting, he don't even want to call Taiwan by its name. Look, President Trump calls Taiwan a place. You guys know we always kill that hotspot. This is some report from our friends at Hotspot. President Trump calls Taiwan a place and refuses to name directly. Let's play just a little bit of this.
It's a more stringent tariff.
I want to ask you about Iran and AI, but China made clear that Taiwan is very important to them. And after your first meeting here, President Xi's spokesman put out a statement to the media, through the media, saying this: the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. If it is handled properly, the bilateral relationship will enjoy overall stability. Otherwise, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy. You were still inside the meeting when that came out. That sounded almost like a threat. Was it communicated that way behind closed doors?
No. You guys see how Fox News? I think I'll try to turn the volume on. Let me know if you guys can hear it. But you guys see how Fox News, like, bro, why are you letting China treat you like this? They treating you like a pussy, bro. What's going on here? So Brett Barron, like, bro, what? Why are you just accepting China threatening us over Taiwan? And let's see how Xi Jinping got Trump trained.
No, it wasn't, not at all. But it has always been their most important issue. And it's not a takeover. They just don't want to see this place. We'll call it a place because nobody knows how to define it. But they don't want to see it go independent.
It's a place now, Jason. You guys see how this is about as careful as it gets with Trump. I know he sounds goofy. This is typical Trumpism. But this is about as restrained as you ever going to see Donald Trump on anything. Look, Trump, and this is from, I could find a better source here. I just quickly found one. This is from Polymarket. Trump discourages Taiwan from going independent. Says he's not looking to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war. And I saw the clip. I didn't find the clip. But, Jason, I want you to speak more about this as well, about how the Chinese is viewing the United States posture on Taiwan. Because under Biden, it was disastrous. Because you had Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan. China issuing as many threats towards war as possible for deterrence. Then Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. And then it was like, bro, you guys are really crazy. We wasn't actually going to do all that stuff that we threatened to do. So they did some military drills. Like that, they was forced to kind of temper the situation because that's how crazy the Democratic Party was under the Biden administration. So what is the thoughts among China now regarding the United States posture? I don't know if I'm overreading this, but it seems like Donald Trump has been much more restrained on this issue, at least with his public statements. What are your thoughts, Jason, as we begin to wrap up here?
Well, there's so many things to say about this topic. The feeling on the island of Taiwan, what China would like to call Taiwan province, is dramatically transformed. That's why the leader of the KMT, Chen Liweng, came to Beijing to meet with President Xi Jinping. They are not the elected party right now. However, there is a feeling that, well, firstly, Beijing could retake the island in 20 to 48 hours, but they don't want to do that.
Yeah,
they could take it in 1 to 2 days. No one would be able to stop them. It would be really ridiculously easy. The reason they don't want to do that is because probably people would die. It would make managing the island difficult for the next century because people would remember that blood libel. So the reality is people on Taiwan know that it's inevitable that within the next decade, probably much sooner than that there's going to be some sort of reconciliation, that the two parties are going to find a framework for one China. Whatever that framework is, it's up to the people of China, and that is a reality. But what's really accelerated this is the United States attack on Iran. When the United States went into Iran and showed that it didn't have the military capability to do what it wanted to do there, and it was utterly embarrassed on the global stage, the people of Taiwan looked at Ukraine, and then they looked at Iran, and then they said, you know what, maybe it would just be better for us to return because obviously the United States doesn't have the military capabilities to carry out any sort of support for us in any situation whatsoever. And also think about this. I mean, there are a lot of other factors here as well. It's a population 8 million. 1 million of those people in some way or another live on China's mainland. University, jobs, running factories, people travel. If you're Taiwanese, you can own property in China's mainland, and people do, and they cannot be taken apart. It would be like trying to take Florida away from the United States. It doesn't make any sense economically, politically, geopolitically, the people, it would be insane. It'd be like trying to balkanize the United States. And we know that would be civil war and many people would die. So obviously China, the government in Beijing knows that the international community recognizes that there's one China. It's the official policy of the United States. It's the official policy of 190 countries around the world. It's the official policy of the United Nations. And the Taiwanese are starting to come around, especially given the blunders that the United States has enacted around the world. If Marco Rubio and Donald Trump had kept it in their pants this year, there would probably be some still like, oh, we don't know. And the United States may still look like a superpower. But the fact that they basically squandered the reputation of the United States internationally has really changed the game. And multipolarity is no longer just something we talk about, but that's something we're experiencing.
One last thread of analysis, because there's so much we can analyze about future China-Trump relations and the geopolitical ramifications of said partnership. You guys want to know who I believe is probably the biggest loser out of Trump visiting China? I want your thoughts on this. This is someone who I've been covering a lot. Sane Takaichi. I want to get, because Sane Takaichi has blown a lot of political capital in order to appease Donald Trump, in order to be a puppet of the United States, in order to provoke conflict with China. Their economy has paid for it drastically when she said that Japan will defend Taiwan. So after she caused a diplomatic uproar that led to massive boycott, decrease of Chinese tourism in Japan, they lost the damn pandas. Like, bro, China was so mad at Japan, they withdrew their pandas, bro. Like, you know how fucking mad they got. And this was Sane Takaichi put their country into. And now I covered this in my hotspot that I showed in the intro of this video, of this live stream, how Sane Takaichi is working with Kash Patel now in the FBI in order to create a Japanese CIA that will engage in foreign espionage. And when they say they're going to engage in foreign espionage, who do you think they're talking about? Obviously, they're going to be talking about China. And this is supposed to be a central intelligence agency that existed in Japan for the first time since the age of Imperial Japan, where they had a massive spy network. And because of this, because of actions like this, Takaichi is facing a lot of protests. These are what we covered as well. So this is why I say Takaichi is a gigantic loser. Your economy took a massive hit because you claimed you will defend Taiwan, and you're doing everything you can to ratchet up tensions against China on the direction of Donald Trump in the United States, like a good little vassal. You even allowing the FBI to create an intelligence agency that's going to be used to spy on the Japanese people even more. You guys know they do that in the United States bases. They spy on the Japanese. Now they're going to spend that. They're spending their military budgets. They're implementing austerity only for their patron to the United States to turn around and be like, hey, yo, never mind. We good. We're not going to defend Taiwan. We want normalization. And I'm not the only one who knows it. There's a lot of commentary on Japanese Twitter and people who cover Japan. I just read a little bit of this. Like, this just shows how Japan seems to be the loser in this. Japan got absolutely humiliated by its own closest ally. The timing couldn't be better either. And he explained how Donald Trump. All right, sorry, I'm back. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna get your thoughts. We wrap up. Let's begin to wrap up. But you guys see how Sane Takaichi's aggression against China on behalf of the United States turned out to be a massive blunder. And she's facing protests. The economy is still facing shocks. Let's end it on that. I want your thoughts on that and any final thoughts on the China-Trump meeting. I don't want to take any more of your time. I appreciate you joining us. It's Friday. I think it's Saturday morning for you. But thank you for joining us for this morning for you. And you had a lot of great analysis. I appreciate it, Jason. Any final thoughts as we begin to wrap up this stream here, Jason?
You know, you are one of the more enlightened people that I know in the United States, and you recently posted about the Japanese fascist massacres and genocides that it conducted during and prior to World War II recently. And I thank you for that, because Americans do not understand Japan's relationship with its neighbors. If Japan goes off like it has been, it's really isolating itself from the region. Yeah, maybe the Philippines' current government is pro-Japanese, but everyone in Asia hates Japan. Why? Because Japan invaded China and tortured, murdered, mutilated people, experimented on, invaded Taiwan, invaded the Philippines, invaded Indonesia, invaded Hong Kong. No one in Asia thinks of Japan in a positive light. That's a very American, European kind of perspective on Japan. If Japan isolates itself and really comes out of the gates storming like it is, Asia's not going to react well, because Asia has a horrible relationship with Japan.
Yeah. I won't let them forget. That's why I always bring up all the war crimes. And it's actually infuriating how people in the West try to cover up the reality of what Imperial Japan. That Hello Kitty propaganda not working on me, bro. Like, you got to know that's why they started Hello Kitty, to help save their image as what they was known as a pro-rape Nazis of Asia who believed in racial supremacy. And then they're like, all right, let's create Hello Kitty. Let's create anime. And that has done a lot of PR. It was a PR success for them in the West, but in Asia, they're like, we're not forgetting. We fuck with anime too, but we're not forgetting about what you guys did. But anyway, Jason, thank you for joining us today. Make sure you guys follow the Bridge to China podcast. Make sure you guys follow Jason Smith on X. Anything you want to plug and promote? I have your book here. Your book is fantastic. Jason does a lot of writing about China. Anything you want to plug and promote before you wrap up here, Jason?
Yeah, if you're not already following this channel, Nick's channel, I highly recommend that you follow it. I get a lot of information here also.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason. I'll let you go. I appreciate it. We definitely will be calling you back. Jason, one of my favorite people to speak about on China. Very knowledgeable. So make sure you guys follow Jason and his work. What a great guest. What a great guest. Couldn't have a better timing to have him on too. So much analysis there. I want to get my friend Zoya's Love. Zoya's Live. You want to help us close us out on this Friday night? I'm kind of tired.
Absolutely. I love Jason. What a great guest and a great guy. We're so lucky. He's always willing to come on the show and drop some truth bombs on us. Let's get into your chats. Harry Balsack. I'm getting more used to saying that handle. Y'all check out.
That's so fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Y'all check out Nick on Jamal Thomas show today. Was good. Yeah, it was really good. Nick is a beast. He's done DD geopolitics, Jamal Thomas. He's just been on podcasts every single day and making hotspots. So definitely please support all of his hard work.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on Nico's house next week too. So we got a lot of bangers. I told you we got a lot of bangers coming up this summer, guys.
We got to bring Nico back on here too.
Yeah, for sure.
Nico's always a good time. It's nice to be in community with friends.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to bring Nico and David back here soon. That's the plan. David Houdain is extremely hard to get on because of time zone. He's in Africa, very tough. But I'm gonna do another stream with him one day for sure. I love David and my brother Nico.
GeoBot, thank you for the $5. We got to get in the habit of saving articles to hard drive for when they eventually get scrubbed. Absolutely. I just read an article that now all of these AI companies are buying up thousands of rare books, uploading them, and destroying them. So just like the burning of Alexandria, they are literally monopolizing knowledge. That's going to get paywalled too. Lorshak Molse, Gaddafi's imaginary Viagra soldiers. Yeah, I don't know who still remembers, but they were trying to smear Gaddafi, saying that he's handing out Viagra to his soldiers. They're always trying to dehumanize and vilify the other side in order to justify the barbarity that Westerners actually do to them. Harry Balsack. I remember being in the courthouse in Moultrie County in 1990. There was a painting of a black man being hanged with a crowd watching. No joke. And that's in a courthouse. And these are the institutions that people want us to put faith into. We cannot go the Hassan route and keep voting for genocide enablers and thinking that something's going to improve. Wix, Nick, come to Belarus, bro. As Nick's security and bodyguard, I would have to accompany him. But one day, hopefully, we will get a chance to travel internationally. Ultra Death, thank you for the heart. The handle and the message don't really match, but yes, lots of love to everyone in our audience.
And let me tell you guys, with Zoya as my bodyguard, I feel extremely safe. But yeah, we're gonna do an international tour one day. Like, it's gonna happen. Us traveling, China, Moscow, that kind of stuff is gonna happen. And I want to meet some international comrades, because that's where like a large amount of our support comes from.
Definitely, it's going to be great. This is our long-term plans, and we'll make it happen. V. Olafs Dodier, hey Nick the cook. Feeling hopeful. Just watch Gray Zone. Looks like Cuba is going to be run by the US, probably via invasion. It's definitely the plan. It's not like they're hiding it. They're strangling Cuba. And as soon as Venezuela fell, Cuba became the next target and in jeopardy. Just like when Syria fell, I knew that they're going to go after Iran next. They actually don't hide their plans if you're paying attention. But hopefully Cuba will hang on and get more international solidarity and support from Mexico, China, Russia, and all of the countries that are helping them out. Lamar Passmore, success defined by secularist standards isn't actually success at all. I would say capitalist standards. Violin, in wartime, that's convenient since they're always at war. Yeah. Convenient for us to have only wartime policies when we're always at war. Cuba will go in the jungle and fight. That's what we thought about Venezuela too, but when leadership sells out, there's not much people on the ground can do. So we'll see what happens. All solidarity to Cuba, of course. Lorshak, MI6 snitch Orwell loved British colonialism. Yeah, just because someone made good observations and their quotes are widespread doesn't mean that their politics were good. Mr. Blamo, American soldiers do and did the same to other people throughout any of their wars. It's just sick. It's part of the colonizer mindset. They had programs to whiten communities. Even in Argentina and other places, long after colonization, they literally had programs. You can still find articles about it and read books about it to whitewash literally the population.
Yeah, this is why I like to say that Israel is just an extension of the United States empire. What the right wing does, which is extreme cope, where they say that they like pretend that Israel corrupted America. You know what I mean? They say Israel is controlling the United States. Israel is an extension of the United States and United States culture. Like, don't let these white people off the hook. These white people, they just want to blame the Jews for everything. Like, no, bro. The American society has always been barbaric. They engage in mass rape of the indigenous people, mass rape of our people. They committed massive atrocities all over the world. So, of course, Israel will be the same. They have the same value set. So that's the only thing I don't like about a lot of the right-wing criticism of Israel. They like to pretend that America was great until if it wasn't only for 1948, if it only wasn't for Israel, America would still be a moral country, and that's not the right analysis in my opinion.
It's ahistorical.
Exactly.
Randy Terpustra. Good evening, Nick, and all my revolutionary comrades. Good evening. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Please hit like and subscribe to support the show. Kill your egos. Nick at Night, another banger. You know how Nick rolls. Even though Nick tried to leave the show like twice, which was funny. Hassan Hunter, during slavery, these colonizers did it then too. Exactly. Oh, we got a comment from Twitch. Sock now. Hey, Socialist MMA. Hopefully, our audience will grow on Twitch in time. We definitely need backups to YouTube because our days on here are numbered. Mr. Blamo, interesting fact, the Russian Empire, when it was expanding, abolished slavery in the territories it had conquered or annexed. Those monsters, how dare they? I hate shitlibs. Viva Maduro. Yes, solidarity to Maduro as well, who's being confined in a small prison cell on solitary. We must remember to keep all of political prisoners in our thoughts. Marvin Vargas, Trump is about the optics theater. Give him a platform to lie on. That's all U.S. politics, though. Optics theater. It's not like we're debating anything material. Cap Terrell, it's about billionaires trying to keep cheap trading going while price gouging us to death. Absolutely. Adrian Fenton, 100% preach. Lorshak, imagine what the Soviet Union could have reached if the USA and Brits didn't arm Hitler to the teeth. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that US was selling products to Germany the entirety of World War II. Even after they entered the war, they were still doing business through Sweden and other neutral parties because they needed chemicals and other things. Plus, Ford had a plant in Germany. So the U.S. can never be trusted. They're always double dealing and making profit on both sides of any war. Feeling hopeful, thanks to the treacherous drunk Yeltsin. May Yeltsin and Gorbachev burn in hell together for selling out the Russian people. The overwhelming majority did not support the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So that was, again, leadership selling out and selling out its people. And it led to a lot of mass suffering and death. The Soviets would still be protecting Cuba too. Yeah, Russia is doing its part, but it's not on the level of solidarity that the USSR was doing. They themselves are at war too. Feed me Seymour. We used to send our trash to China. Russia is still buying trash from America. America is still doing business with Russia. It's just not in the headlines. We have a very interlinked global economy. So a lot of people who have rivalries and are even at war, or a lot of countries, not people, are still doing business. Marvin Vargas, U.S. is owned by bankers. It can't be trusted. Always has been. Santejan. The Soviet Union can re-exist. We can place that same system in the U.S. We don't have to let it be in the history books. We can literalize Lenin's vision. Well,
I love the revolutionary optimism of people in our community. Right, I love it.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to highlight that comment. So we should definitely keep revolutionary optimism going, but also China is putting that vision into motion right now, and they're adjusting to the times. They're not trying to build a utopia, so they still get criticism, but they are the most successful communist project to date, and they're building on the lessons and the legacy of the Soviet Union. I hate shitlibs. China, Russia, and Iran have all been open to good relations with the U.S. Fact, absolutely. They always offer to have peaceful, prosperous, good relations, but that's not what the U.S. wants. They want dominance, and in order to achieve their dominance, they need war and chaos. China offers Belt and Road, while U.S. coerces countries into mafia-style IMF loans. Exactly.
Yep. They put Africa in debt while China builds. The United States bombs while China builds. Never forget.
Under and six low, China rose to the top without firing a shot. A model of what humanity is capable of, truly. Feed me Seymour, 800 million lifted out of poverty, and the U.S. will never forgive them for it. They try to vilify China so much, but you can't erase the facts. 800 million, almost a billion people raised out of poverty. What other nation can boast such success?
If I have time, I really do want to show you guys one of these corporate media propaganda videos. I didn't have time because I figured it'd be better just to listen to Jason. But bro, the shit they was saying about China, bro, they was like, "Gee, it's the greatest human right violator in the world, who not even taking care of the people, bro." And this was coming on MSNBC, CNN. It's crazy what they get Americans to believe about China. It's absolutely crazy. And meanwhile, China, like, bro, what the hell's your guys' problem, man?
America's like a psychotic jealous ex. Just pure projection. Marvin Vargas, the world don't want to work with US. Sanctions, regime change, dollar war against other nations. Unfortunately, a lot of countries are forced into it under the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, this is what my friend David Hudayan, African reporter, he been trying to grill this into his Nigerian brothers and sisters. He is almost driven to the point of insanity. He's like, bro, why are a lot of he looking like at the conservative Nigerians who still believe that the United States has their best interests, and they smear David. Like David talks about all the time, they smear him as like a Russian agent. Zoe, I don't know if you know this. Like,
I do.
yeah, African liberals hate his ass. Like the African right, they accuse him of being a Putin puppet because he's like, bro, obviously the United States doesn't have our best intention in mind, and there's a growing Pan-African movement, and we've got to continue to wake these people up. Like we have a few holdouts left. Like Uganda is cooked. Uganda's full of African Zionists. Nigeria, Kenya, we still got some work to do, but for the most part, your comment is true. For the most part, the global majority is turning against the United States, but let's not twist it too much. We still got some work to do. Like the world, the Pan African movement still got a lot of convincing to do.
Yeah, I've seen David posting about it on X. He's definitely fighting the good fight. But everyone that has ever been smeared as a Putin puppet, just research the stuff that they're saying because it's verifiable facts. They might be triggering, but it's verifiable facts. Lorshak Molse, when Russia and China visit us, we get a hospital, factory, housing. When Westerners, a lecture. Yeah, that's from a famous quote. Ruski Partisan. Paraguay recognizes Taiwan as an independent country. Taiwan and the US pay them a lot. That's how it goes. Street Camp Munchies. Amazing so many understand but won't do anything. We need to change that. We need to motivate people and inspire people to start doing things. We can't just accept this as reality and let so many get crushed by genocide and barbarism around us because it's all coming home. So it's just a matter of time as the contradictions get heightened. Feeling hopeful, China is visionary, sent volumes of solar panels to Cuba. Absolutely. Great humanitarian action. Don't believe the smears about China.
Russia. Like people can always do more, but as Americans, how can you complain about China and Russia coming to the aid of Cuba when we can't even stop our government from starving and killing Cubans? So shout out to China and Russia for that. But go ahead, Zoya.
Santiajan, China exports their ideology. They do it without imposition. Sorry, my alarm went off. They do it without imposition. They do things passively. And that's because they deal with other people with respect. They want to teach and they want harmony. They don't want to impose exploitation on them. Randy Terpastra, authorities that make peaceful reform difficult make violent revolution inevitable. We will see that in our lifetime. Fine weather. Oh, Nick, some fear North Korea as a threat. What has North Korea done to anyone? Show me on the doll where North Korea hurt you. North Korea hasn't done anything except provide for its people and try to survive against imperialism.
You guys see how the ruling class convinces us to fight their battles? Like a bunch of Jews hate North Korea because they never recognized Israel as a state. Like that's what it is. You think they give a fuck about human rights violations? I need Americans to wake up. North Korea has always supported Palestine, and that's why Jews convince people to hate them. It's just that damn simple.
America has so many human rights violations. It's just incredible. It reminds me, I just saw an old Soviet propaganda poster that's decades old. It's like from the 1970s. And it was calling out the Epstein class before there was an Epstein, because this has always been how the ruling class conducted itself. And it's calling them out for all of the child trafficking. So the rest of the world knows exactly what this country is. It's only us that are in denial, thinking that we're the good guys and pretending that these other countries that we bombed and murdered millions of their civilians, that they're actually the bad guys. Like Malcolm said, you know, the newspapers will have you hating the ones being oppressed if you're not careful. Vincent Gauthier, do you use the Internet Archive to find scrubbed articles, etc., Nick? Some things get scrubbed even there.
Fam, I'm sorry, Joy, but the only reason I'm able to find some of these headlines is because I would search my own Twitter account. You guys realize how crazy that is? Like I know I tweeted some stuff about stuff like years ago, so I would find old headlines of stuff I tweeted because I would usually post the link. I'll post the article headline. I do it all the time on X. If you follow me, you know what I'm talking about. So that'd be like the only way I'm able to find old articles. Like if I would look for an article I posted a few years ago, and I would look for it online, a lot of times they're gone. Like a lot of those screenshots I found because I posted about it years ago. That's the only way I was able to find a lot of these articles. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Zoya.
No, I was going to agree with you. I'm having the same exact experience. Even articles on Ukraine and things like that, they've just disappeared. And I have to search my old account in order to find like screenshots of it, but they've been scrubbed.
Yep.
They're literally rewriting history in real time.
Yeah, you can start. You can literally do it. It's experiment if you're interested. You can search my Twitter account, and I remember once I searched Ukraine before 2020 just to see what I was tweeting about, and that's where I found a lot of my old articles, like way before the Ukraine proxy war. Do the same for like Rokana. Do the same for Progressive. Like search their account and see what they say about Ukraine before the special military operation. It's usually very revealing.
Exactly. 6-pack for me. Thank you for the $5. The 500-year-old white empire is dying and a new world is struggling to be born. And the rest of that quote is, now is the time of monsters. Zaldivar, thank you for the $2. Trump zoned out harder than Vosh at a donkey show. Whoa. Cat Terrell, those cars are lame compared to Chinese EVs. Oh my God. If you guys look into the cars that China's making, I am so jealous. I have looked into like, how can I possibly get one of these cars? But in this free market economy, we're not allowed to have better products from other countries.
Yeah, it pains me to say this, you guys know, but that's a very rare China L. Like their respect for Elon Musk. I would chalk it up to a cultural difference, but that's a very rare China L to me.
Yeah, it's a different culture. They definitely are just more respectful in general.
Yeah.
Justice, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Great book. Definitely mandatory reading. Vass Adams, like Michael Parenti said, the third world is not poor or underdeveloped. They're overexploited. You don't go to poor countries to make money. Exactly. No one can actually disprove any of this. That's why they have to call people poon puppets and smear them, because the logic of Marxism is sound, and history only keeps proving Marxists right. Lorshag, Xi should have forced them to sing communist songs. That would have been hilarious. Saul Good, why would you bring 30 billionaires to China with you? Because we are a capitalist country. So, and really we should stop calling them billionaires. We should call them oligarchs, just like they do to the billionaires of other countries. Billy Joy, 5 billionaires own 90% of the West's wealth, and only a handful of people own more wealth than 4 billion people than half the population of the entire earth. And they're trying to tell us that's not a broken system, that it's based on merit, when most wealth is actually inherited. Defiance DPR, when you elect a con artist and speculator to pretend to be a politician, diplomat. Yeah, but they're all actors. They're all actors for the regime. Under and Sixlow, Thucydides went over all the Americans' heads. Yeah, that was a quote that G was saying to recently on this visit, basically saying not to go down the same road as Athens and Sparta, where one power is declining and another superpower is emerging to avoid war. But yes, Americans are not educated by design, so we don't get a lot of these references. Justice, China produces more renewable energy than the rest of the world combined. China has done a great job of creating energy sovereignty and food sovereignty because they know how the Western empires function. They've lived through it and they're determined never to live through it again. Saul Good, he's saying we don't need to go to war, but historically that usually happens. Unfortunately, the US definitely wants war rather than losing their hegemony. I hate shitlibs. Compared to Xi, our leaders sound like children. Yeah, it's embarrassing. They're really misleaders. Mr. Blamo, Xi and Pung talk the same to America. It's rather humorous. It's just calling them out, but people are not too smart and don't listen. People are undereducated and brainwashed. That's something that's been done to them by the ruling class. Violin, GDP goes up when rents inflate, when financial fees, and when people get sick. That's not industrial GDP. Exactly. So basically, capitalism in the West is a system that's monetized suffering. They profit off of our suffering. Things like healthcare and housing should be guaranteed human rights, but in this country, we don't even acknowledge that. They brainwash us to think it'll make our taxes go up, not that the government should work for you.
Well said as always, Zoya. You're cooking tonight. You're cooking tonight.
Distro, our public school system is fucked. Yep. Justice, free Julius Malema. Yes, we must keep all of these comrades in our thoughts and be inspired by their sacrifices and their actions and keep the fight going. Ayumpnur, car industry totally dismantled the free market myths, lol. Then they changed the narrative to protectionism. Yeah, they've done that before. Again, when we look at US history, it's all rinse, repeat. Destro, shout out to Cubans. Y'all stay strong over there. Yes, major solidarity to our Cuban brothers and sisters and all of our brothers and sisters fighting oppression. Violin, the US education system used to be capable of producing such intellects. Oh well. We don't need that around here. We don't need educated workers demanding better material conditions from their government. Ayupnor, the problem is so systemic, yet you got clowns like Hassan acting like Congress's issue is a rotating villain. The rotating villain is a feature, not a bug. And Hassan is acting like if we just elect more progressives, that feature is going to go away. But he's literally telling us to do things that are over a decade old. We already tried this after the Bernie movement. We already elected more progressives, a major slate of them. The squad was growing. Every single election cycle, we got more and more of these people with grassroots funds and volunteers into office. And all they did was vote with Biden and Pelosi over 90% of the time. And every time they had a chance to use the leverage that we gave them, like when Pelosi was trying to get reelected as Speaker of the House, just to force a vote, just to hold, they had the necessary margins to keep her from getting that position and demand a vote on healthcare. And they said now's not the time. And that's all they've done is say that now's not the time while they fund wars, while they fund genocide, while they get us absolutely zero gains. So this Justice Democrats project has failed. And Kyle Kulinski himself, one of the founders of Justice Democrats, said years ago that this project has failed. And he was all going dark Kyle and leaning into revolution. And now he's just like regressed, like he never made those observations himself. And now they're all back to telling us to vote blue no matter who. These people take revolutionary energy and drive it into a dead end. If you guys research their tactics, you will see that they have been tried and they have failed. So we cannot afford to keep listening to these sellouts any longer.
Don't you know that all we have to do is vote for Democrats with a cause? You gotta know I'm never gonna let him live that down, right?
Yeah, just vote for genocide with a cause. Vote for the Nazis with a cause. We can change the Nazis from the inside. That's literally what they're pushing down our throats while insulting our intelligence and condescending to us and telling us to grow up. It's all good. Country we shift all of our jobs to is doing well now. Great. Yeah, I mean, who could have seen that coming? Lower Shack, even Chinese McDonald's is levels better. McDonald's is better all over the world. American food standards are illegal in other countries. So workers at McDonald's get paid way more, like triple and quadruple the salaries here. They actually have benefits, and the food standards and food quality is way better. That goes for everything, not just McDonald's. Look at the Coke that's made in Mexico using real sugar in those glass bottles. So we that is the only freedom that we have, to have the lowest standards of food products, of housing, of all of these things that they've convinced us is somehow an own on these other countries. Violin, China's business model requires stability. The US model requires instability and chaos. Well said. Blueser, thank you for the $100. Really appreciate that support. As I told you guys, Nick's been working really hard doing podcast after podcast and a lot of research. M. Sparks, thank you for the $2. Nick and Zoya, cooking with Max. Yeah, and that brings us to the end of this Friday show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed all of the wisdom and knowledge that we got from Jason. Nick, always cooking as usual. I'm going to close out the show. Just a quick reminder, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can catch us here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, other than some special shows that we always announce. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell. We are heavily suppressed. You can also follow us on Twitch, Kick, Rumble, X, and Telegram. The links are in the description, as well as a link to Bonfire. On Bonfire, we are selling merch that goes 100% of the proceeds go to Gaza funds and the artists creating the work. So if you guys are looking for ways that you can donate to Gaza and support a great graphic designer, Erin, she's wonderful. She's been with us for a long time. You can find the link in the description, and the merch is all anti-imperialist, and hopefully something you guys would enjoy wearing. As always, I want to remind you guys that everything you do matters. They want you to feel powerless and hopeless. So the way you fight back is by having hope, by embracing your power, and by taking responsibility for what we can do, going out into our communities and helping people. Even if you just help a neighbor, that is revolutionary. If you help people in your community, this is how we build. And if every single person did that, we would already have a better world. So I know it can be scary, intimidating, and we've all become sort of apathetic and distracted, but it really matters what we do every single day of our lives. So my homework to you guys is to do just one thing, even if it's a small thing, helping an elderly person, checking in on a neighbor, offering some volunteer services, going to feed the homeless, whatever you can do, you can make a difference in someone's day. And it's these small actions that add up to a tsunami of revolution. And we need that help and we need that solidarity. So keep hope alive. We will win. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Take care of each other. Love and solidarity always.
Yeah, thank you guys. Zoe is love. Zoe is life, my friends. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.